Arc V, in a way, is a dark, twisted reflection of many other aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! For instance, Blackwings are the signature theme of Crow Hogan, an archetype that took synchro summoning from new gimmick to legit strategy. And what's the opposite of birds? That's right, wasps! And what's the opposite of dark? Wind! That's right, you're all so smart. Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and in the July 2019 side set, Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge, Battlewasps were released as the signature theme of Shinji Weber, a member of the Synchro Dimensions Commons, an underclass in the service of the Topsiders, which is basically the exact same social structure as what we saw in 5Ds. It's a pretty competent insect deck, which is a feat in and of itself, and with some legacy support coming out in Rage of the Abyss, it's time to see what all the buzz is about. It's time for Battlewasps Explained. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. So, what's the deal with Battlewasps? Well, they're a series of wind insect monsters that have a penchant for synchro summoning. But to help distinguish them from their original universe counterparts, you'll also find that a number of Battlewasps also care about dealing effect damage. And because wind and insects are a pretty niche combination, you can take advantage of some sick tech cards to accomplish their game plan for making big synchro monsters and harrying your opponent with battle and effect damage alike. First up is Battlewasp Dart the Hunter, a level 1 monster with 100 attack and defense, and when your Battlewasp monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle that is owned by your opponent, you can discard this card to burn your opponent for damage equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. You can also target one of your insect monsters that you control, and it is treated as a tuner this turn. Also, you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except insect monsters. So you have your choice of this being either a big damage spell, or a card that passes out the tuner status. That makes for a great summon off of our other effects after we've pitched this for massive damage, though I do take umbrage with the fact that it specifies we have to destroy those monsters in battle and that they have to own them. Like, designers, what's your problem with us cheesing things with kaijus? Stuff like this is like half of the reason to play those cards. Battlewasp Pin the Bullseye is a level 1 monster with 200 attack and 300 defense, and if you control an insect monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And during your main phase, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each Pin the Bullseye that you control. Now, sadly, this is a hard once per turn, so we can't summon all 3 and then deal 3 instances of 600 damage. It's far better to think of this as a good extension tool as opposed to a vessel for dealing a lot of damage. But doing 200 damage for free means you basically have a way to win in time built into your deck, and sometimes it really does make the difference. It's not the flashiest member of the crew, but it does a lot of work, not just here, but in practically any insect deck that wants link material, so make sure you include Pin to win. Battlewasp Sting the Poison is a level 2 tuner monster with 400 attack and 800 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Battlewasp monster from your deck to your hand except a copy of this card. And as a quick effect, you can tribute one other insect monster, then target an effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. So we have a Stratos that also acts as a tuner, and can also negate a monster effect on demand. That's pretty slick. Granted, as a tuner, keeping this on board isn't really a priority, but does make for a good revival target after the fact to really gum up your opponent's plays. You could say that Sting really poisons the well. Battlewasp Twinbow the Attacker is a level 3 monster with 1000 attack and 500 defense, and during your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand. Also, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except insect monsters. Also, it can make 2 attacks during each battle phase. So the cool thing about Twinbow is that you don't actually need to have an established board to special summon this. You just get to drop it right out of your hand, kind of like Rika Princess, though Twinbow's restriction will apply even after it leaves the field, unlike Princess. The double attack isn't great with a base 1000 attack, and we don't have a lot of attack bonuses we can dole out, but uncontested, it does represent 2000 damage, and any boost does get double the value. That being said, there are a lot of monsters with better offensive capabilities, so why does Twinbow get the title of the Attacker? We're all attacking here. Battlewasp Arbalest the Rapid Fire is a level 4 monster with 1800 attack and 800 defense, and when this card is normal summoned, you can target a level 3 or lower insect monster in your grave and special summon it in defense position. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon a Battlewasp monster from your hand or deck. Sadly, with this only working on normal summon, it's not quite as flexible as the rest of our Battlewasps, but this can revive Sting, which gets you another surge, which is really swell. It's nice that its floating effect works on any kind of opponent's destruction, but honestly, the sooner we can sync this off ourselves, the better. It looks rather cross-bow with us. Battlewasp Rapier the Furious is a level 5 monster with 1900 attack and 0 defense, and if you control no face-up monsters, or the only face-up monsters you control are insects, you can discard one other insect monster to place a Battlewasp Wind from your deck face-up in your spell and trap zone, then special summon this card from your hand. Also, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except insect monsters. You can also banish this card from your grave to reduce the level of one insect monster you control by 1. This is the first piece of new support that we've seen so far in this video, and it is fantastic. You know how I've been saying that this deck is basically just insect-flavored Blackwings? Well, now it's true right down to the Black Whirlwind knockoff, which we should actually cover really quickly here. Battlewasp Wind is a continuous spell card that, up to twice per turn, if any number of Battlewasp monsters are normal or special summoned to your field, you can target one of them to add a Battlewasp monster with less attack from your deck to your hand. Also, once per turn, you can target an insect monster you control that has a level, and if you use it as Synchro material this turn, you can treat it as a tuner. Which is really good because for a Synchro theme, we don't actually have a lot of tuners. But yeah, if you're at all familiar with our feathered friends, you can see that Winds is almost entirely the same card. Heck, Wind might be better because while the search is capped here at twice per turn, it triggers on normal or special summons. And heck, we can even bypass that twice per turn limit if we get a little funky with it, but we'll cover that in just a bit. The best part is that because Rapier puts Wind onto the board before the special summon, you trigger one of the searches from Wind immediately, replacing the insect you had to pitch to get this effect going. This is a game changer for the theme, ensuring you have the right Battlewasps at the right time, and will keep scaling into the future with later releases, even if it is pretty derivative. I mean, we've already clocked that Winds is basically Black Whirlwind, but I haven't really brought up that Rapier the Furious is just Sea Moon! Alright, that's all of the main deck monsters, now it's time for the Synchros. Battlewasp Azusa the Ghost Bow is a level 5 tuner monster with 2200 attack and 1600 defense, requiring generic material. When your opponent takes effect damage from another Battlewasp monster, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the original attack of that monster. And when a monster is destroyed by battle while this card is in your grave, you can special summon this card in defense position, but banish it when it leaves the field. This makes for a pretty good stepping stone for our higher leveled Synchros, especially since we have a way to revive this to make another monster. It also helps to pad out our effect damage output, though we have yet to find a monster that makes really good use of that additional burn. Because it goes off the inflicting monster's attack, our choices are currently Pin, which only has 200 attack, and Dart, who has 100. Thankfully, we have some Synchros coming up that can also trigger this and have a bit of a beefier stat line. Weird that they brought a dead bow to the proceedings though, but to each their own. Feels a bit disrespectful though. Battlewasp Halberd the Charge is a level 6 monster with 2500 attack and 800 defense, requiring an insect tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. Once per battle, during damage calculation, if this card attacks an opponent's monster with equal or higher attack as a quick effect, you can have the attack of that opponent's monster during that damage calculation only. And when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each Battlewasp monster that you control. Hey, now this one's pretty snazzy. It essentially contests anything with 5,000 or less attack with that debuff, and then gets in for even more damage depending on how much of your board is set up. Expect to make this often if you're looking to break open a particularly nasty monster while dealing some extra damage at no extra charge. Battlewasp Sachi the Ritual Bow is a level 6 monster with 2400 attack and 1200 defense, requiring an insect tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. If this card is Synchro summoned, you can activate an effect that treats this monster as a tuner.
And once per turn, you can return a continuous spell card you control to the hand to normal summon a Battlewasp monster during your main phase in addition to your normal summon or set that turn. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each of your banished Battlewasp monsters. So because this monster can be treated as a tuner or a non-tuner, it can help with a few different Synchro lines, which is good because that's how you're going to get the extra damage from Sachi. But another big impact is the ability to return a continuous spell to your hand for the extra Battlewasp normal summon. See, Battlewasp Wind comes with a neat little clause that says you can only activate copies of this card once per turn. But if you place it on the field with Rapier's effect, that's not activating the card. It places it. So if you manage to get both searches off of Wind, you can bounce it back to your hand with Sachi, and then activate it, and there you go, you get 2 more searches out of it. This is a pretty good addition to the theme, helping to grease the wheels for your play lines to make them more effective. But it is very strange to see a Synchro monster running around with a ritual bow. Come on, Sachi, we've got an aesthetic to keep going here. Have you been speaking to that no-good Javelin Beetle? I told you we don't associate with that ritual monster until they get a retrain. Come on, Javelin Beetle, why can't you be more like Skull Guardian? Battlewasp Hama, the Conquering Bow, was a level 8 monster with 2800 attack and 2000 defense, requiring generic material. If this card was Synchro summoned using a Synchro monster as material, it can make a second attack during each battle phase. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can make all monsters your opponent currently controls lose 1000 attack and defense, and at the end of the battle phase, if your opponent hasn't taken any damage this phase, you can burn your opponent for 300 damage for each of your Battlewasp monsters in your grave. Now this is a menace. It's not going to be terribly difficult Synchro climbing into this, making for a pretty powerful double attacker who, after running over a monster, cripples your opponent's remaining lineup. This means we can either have Hama take out another monster, or the rest of our monsters can help deconstruct their field so Hama can get in for the killing blow. Or should I say, the killing bow. I can't do the pun yet. But what gets me is that even if you can't deal damage with it, Hama still pushes for game with that end of battle phase effect. No matter what, you're putting your opponent on a clock. Though it is a bit unfortunate that it checks how many Battlewasps are in your grave, which does clash with a new direction in design on focusing on your banished wasps. Though, to be fair, that conflict was already kind of present with some later entries that we'll talk about in a bit. For now, it's more than enough to know that Hama is a fantastic breaker of boards. But let's be real here, how much are you conquering with just a single bow? Seems a bit unrealistic. Battlewasp Ballista the Armageddon is a level 12 monster with 3000 attack and 800 defense, requiring generic material. If this card is special summoned, you can banish all insect monsters from your grave, and all monsters your opponent currently controls lose 500 attack and defense for each of your banished insect monsters. It deals piercing battle damage, and if the Synchro summoned card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon up to 3 of your banished level 11 or lower insect monsters. It's funny to say, but this actually feels kind of like a downgrade from our previous Synchro. This may be because it takes 12 levels of materials to make, but a 3000 attack stat line is only slightly bigger than Hama, and all it does is gain piercing, and admittedly a pretty big debuff. It also floats as long as your opponent destroys it, getting any banished lower level insect monster. It synergizes well with our newer support since they love checking for banished cards, but I wouldn't put stock in this being our big showstopper. The marketing team is trying their best here, but this isn't going to cause the end of the world anytime soon. It's barely going to put an end to locals. Battlewasp Grand Partisan the Revolution is a level 12 monster with 3000 attack and 2000 defense, requiring generic material. It can't be destroyed by card effects, and insect synchro monsters you control gain 200 attack for each of your banished insect monsters. If this card is banished, you can special summon it, then you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of your banished insect monsters. Then burn your opponent for 500 damage for each card that was destroyed. Now this is a fantastic new boss for the theme. This is going to get away with a lot of stuff. By itself, you're protected from effect destruction and gives all your on-theme synchros a pretty good boost once you've begun your banishing regiment. And if you banish this monster, it comes back, gets your removal, and burns your opponent for more damage. I'm very much looking forward to how this spikes the usability of the theme, especially since this goes very well with the Zeus of the Ghost Bow, burning your opponent for 3000 damage. It truly is going to revolutionize the theme. Alright, that covers all the monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps.
Armament Swarm is a normal spell card that special summons an insect monster with 1,000 or less attack from your hand or deck, and if you special summon it from the deck, send a monster you control to the grave. You cannot special summon for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, except insect monsters. And if any number of face-up insect synchro monsters you control are destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in your grave, you can banish this card to add a copy of Summoning Swarm from your deck to your hand. That is a spell card we'll cover in just a bit, and does a pretty good job of making up for a lost synchro monster. As for the activated effect, it's a great way to get Sting onto the field, as indicated by the card art. The problem is that you have to give up another monster if you choose to summon from the deck, which may not work out so well on most board states. You can't just summon Sting, send it to the graveyard, and expect to get that on-field trigger because it won't be around when a new chain is forming. So if you don't have a fodder monster to give up to it, you may want to pivot to a different insect with 1,000 or less attack, namely ones that have good grave effects. Using this with Resonance Insect will get any level 5 or higher insect from your deck into your hand, and if you use Goki Pole, you can get any level 4 insect, with normal monsters giving you a bit more juice. It's a pretty swell starter depending on how you use it, but I'm pretty confused. I thought it was bees that died after a single sting. If I summon a Battlewasp with this, how come it has to bite the dust? I think we might have some defective insects on our hands.
Revival Swarm is a normal spell card that targets a Battlewasp monster in your grave and special summons it. You can also banish this card from your grave to target an insect monster you control, and it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects until the end of the next turn. So we have an on-theme monster reborn with a way to keep any insect safe through an opponent's turn. That's not too bad. It can also help protect monsters like Hama or Ballista that don't already have protection, or get a monster back to extend your plays. It also doesn't have any restriction on what Battlewasps you can summon, so any of your synchros are fair game to get them into rotation. The only downside is that you can't search this, so it's going to be a beneficial happenstance when you use it, but you can't really count on it consistently, which seems at odds with the card itself. As a swarm, I would have expected to see this pop up everywhere. Summoning Swarm is a normal spell card that targets level 4 or lower Battlewasp monsters in your graveyard up to the number of monsters your opponent controls and special summon them, but you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except insect monsters. So we're looking at a kind of soul charge that matches your opponent's setup. What's cool about it is that it doesn't summon up to the difference between you and your opponent's monsters, you just summon equal to their monster lineup, so if you have 1 and they have 4, you still get to summon 4. Though you do already have to have your grave set up beforehand to get any value out of this, not to mention that this one only summons level 4 and lower Battlewasps, so no getting back your boss monsters here. The summon restriction also puts a damper on any plans that go outside of our prescribed type, but we were going to have to deal with that anyway from our myriad other effects, so that's not really a problem. Just make sure you bring enough food for the entire swarm, because all this dueling is going to make them hungry. Battlewasp Nest is a continuous trap card that triggers when one of your Battlewasp monsters is targeted for an attack. Special summon a Battlewasp monster from your hand or deck, and if you do, place a counter on this card. Then end the battle phase. And if this card has 2 or more counters during the end phase, send it to the grave. So for 2 turns, you can essentially keep your board from being attacked while getting you back more Battlewasps. That's pretty sweet. It would only be better if we had a way to get rid of those counters outside of something goofy like Counter Cleaner. It also doesn't help that the second usage of this effect is going to be super telegraphed, so any kind of removal your opponent has that can be used against Nest is going to. Not to mention that they're probably just going to avoid attacking into a Battlewasp to keep you off of the free revival if they can help it. Though, it is pretty strange that it self-destructs after you summon enough wasps. What, is the nest breaking out in hives? Alright, that's all the Battlewasp cards, now it's time to put them through their paces. Here's a 2-card combo that utilizes the new Battlewasp Rapier, along with an insect discard to fuel it, to set up a wicked board. Get the combo going by activating Rapier's effect, putting Wind on the board and special summoning it. This will trigger Wind, getting you a Sting the Poison. Now use your normal summon on it, triggering Sting's Search to get you Twin Bow, while triggering Winds to get you Pin. Special summon Pin because you control an insect, then use the second effective Winds to turn Rapier or Pin into a tuner, putting them together to make Sachi. We won't be turning them into a tuner here, but we will be using their effect to return a continuous spell we control to the hand to gain the extra Battlewasp normal summon. The important part here is that we get to activate the winds again because, technically, we never actually activated it when we first brought it out, which will reset the searches. Now here's where things get goofy. Take that level 2 Sting the Poison and sync it with Sachi to make Diabolantis the Menacing Mantis. We won't be using Sachi's burn effect here, unless we already have some banished Battlewasps for some reason, but the main draw is going to be using Diabolantis to send any insect or plant monster from our deck to the grave. For this, we're sending Gokipole, triggering its effect, adding any level 4 normal insect monster from your deck to your hand, which will then get to special summon. At this point, we'll use Diabolantis' second effect, turning either itself or the normal insect into a tuner, then putting them together to make Grand Partisan. Now that we finally summoned a Battlewasp, we'll trigger Wind's effect, searching out Arbalest the Rapid Fire. Using our additional normal summon, we'll put it onto the field, then use its effect to bring back Sting from the graveyard. This will also trigger the second search off of Winds, and you can grab basically any Battlewasp that you want. We basically just need it for the discard fodder. Speaking of which, we still have that Twin Bow in our hand. So let's put it onto the board, then link it and our Arbalest into Insector Pico Felina. We'll use its effect, pitching the searched Battlewasp, to equip Resonance Insects onto Grand Partisan. Pico can also get us a draw from here, putting back 3 insects into our deck from the graveyard. What you pick is going to depend on your personal ratios, but a good idea would be to return Diabolantis to reuse it, and doing the same for Gokipole and the normal insect to keep that effect live. Now, link Pico Felina and the Grand Partisan for B-Trooper Armorhorn, triggering the now destroyed Resonance Insect that was equipped. You can grab a few different monsters here, but for this example, we're going to grab B-Trooper Sting Lancer. Now, link the Armorhorn and the Sting into Seraphim Papillon, getting you the 2 counters. Then, banish Grand Partisan, Resonance Insect, and the random Battlewasp you discarded earlier to bring back the Armorhorn. This will trigger 2 effects, one from the Resonance Insect, and the other from Grand Partisan. Resonance Insect can send any insect from deck to grave, so go ahead and send Beargrim, Shelled Emperor of the Forest Crown. Grand Partisan, on the other hand, will special summon itself back to the field. Now, banish 3 more insects, Twin Bow, Pin, and Sachi are the best options here, to summon out the Beargrim. Its stats and effect are very strong, but what we need it for now is Tribute Fodder. Use Armorhorn's normal summon effect to tribute it and the Beargrim for the Sting Lancer that we searched earlier. Though, if our opponent has discarded a monster up till this point, we can actually just use its own effect to summon it to bypass this part. On summon, we'll search out B-Trooper Fly-In Sting from our deck, giving you a monster negate. All told, this leaves you with a 4200 attack Synchro that's immune to effect destruction, 2 turns worth of revivals on future turns with Papillon, and if you use that to revive Sting the Poison, that's 2 Battlewasp searches thanks to Wind, and a monster negate from Fly and Sting as long as you keep a B-Trooper on board. And with the draw from Pico, you're only down by a single card, so you'll still have lots to work with to keep going from here. Okay, so that's all the info I have about Battlewasps, but what do we do with them? Well, like their feathered friends before them, we're looking to swarm the field as much as possible so we can utilize the power of insect synchros. You know, for as many of those as we can muster. So we'll need all the generic insect support we can get our hands on, as well as any wind-friendly effects. So what can we play to help them out? The thing I like about the previous combo is that the Resonance Insect search can branch out into a number of different options. For instance, if you don't want to bother with making Armorhorn but still need a banishing outlet, consider searching Doomdozer. It still banishes 2 for its summons, so you can still get the Resonance and Partisan triggers, and it makes for good levels to work with our tuners. Alternatively, if you want to recycle any non-extra deck insect monsters from those banishes, you can search out Heavy B-Trooper Mighty Neptune. Not only does this give us a second chance to use a number of our monsters, we get a big body that's kind of tough to run over because it floats during the main phase, and a bonus, the attack boost that we get during the end phase can help Papillon stick around longer and not get run over by any mid-sized monster. I'm also a fan of Humongous Hive Hegemon Zex Stagger, as it represents a free insect summon from the hand or grave every end phase, as well as for your opponent if they're on any insects. And while the effects are negated, their bodies still remain the same size, and can still make for great fodder for Link and Synchro summons. But possibly the strongest card you can nab with this search is Crawler Soma. It takes a bit of main deck investment to work, but if you have a spare monster you can turn face down to summon this out of your hand, you can get 2 more crawlers out of your deck. And now that you have 3 level 2 monsters to work with, you have the perfect material to make number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito. It's a monster that forces battle. It can negate effects by doling out hallucination counters, which also represent a lot of damage thanks to Mosquito's last effect. What about other good pieces of insect support? Bee Troopers are flush with them, including Scout Buggy, which gets you all the material you need to make a Cicada King, which isn't a great piece of monster effect negation, but is still a piece of monster effect negation. Praying Mantis is a cool piece of tech to throw in. Summon it from your graveyard with Papillon during the start of your opponent's battle phase, and you can actually trade in the Battlewasp wins to stop an attack and bounce a monster. And if it happens to survive, then hey, that's a free token for you to use on whatever you'd like. Ragnarika Samurai Beetle is a pretty sweet option if we can link it into an on-theme monster, for its theme, giving us back a level 4 or lower cry type from the graveyard, while Ragnarika Wicked Butterfly can help turbo out insects from our hand. Its draw effect isn't going to be quite as powerful because we're very quick to type lock ourselves, but a free draw is still a free draw. Though despite the type locking, there are still a few we need to keep in mind. Bloom is a nifty buff to us and a debuff to our opponent while helping to shape the consistency of our deck, and Evil Seed can search it out for us if we manage to summon it before we lock out plants. The links are also an important thing to keep in mind. Mantis Monk gets us any number of trap cards that are either removal or graveyard hate plus a body, and Stag Sovereign is great for retaliating against summons from the deck or extra deck. Cocoon of Ultra Evolution isn't a bad inclusion either. While Battlewasps don't inherently do the whole equip thing like other insect themes can do, it's never too far away with Pico Felina on hand. This gives you access to a wealth of big insects, but my favorite has got to be Metamorphosed Insect Queen, because as long as you have any other insect on the board, all your insects can't be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Not to mention that it recycles insects for a draw, and that's pretty cute. It also opens the door to potentially use Ultimate Great Insect, a fusion that you can contact out into if you tribute an equipped insect monster with at least 2,000 defense. And would you look at how many defense points that Grand Partisan has? The main draw for this card is that during each battle phase, you can Raigeki your opponent's field as long as you have a field spell, and we have probably the best one around, Giant Ballpark. This works best if you have a few normal insects to send for the effect, as you can get yourself a big field once you trigger the damage nullifying effect. Not to mention that it lets your insects float on effect destruction from your opponent. Also, check out Giant Ball Game. It's a combination Monster Reborn and Creature Swap, and you get to pick the monster. It's pretty goofy. As for a silly tech pick, Ninja Grandmaster Hanzo is at the top of my list. That's right. On normal summon, this can search out Ninjutsu Art of Mosquito Marching, which can itself turbo out a plethora of insects from your hand as long as they have the same level. But that's not all, because once you get number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito into play, this puts hallucination counters on a bunch of your opponent's monsters from the grave, which basically takes them out of contention and can get that damage rolling ASAP, instead of having to spend an attack putting a hallucination counter on a monster. And that's all I've got to say about Battlewasps. I'm curious to see where this deck goes. Sadly, the theme is already trying to work with an outdated playstyle, and while Blackwings are kinda timeless, Battlewasps have to deal with a number of summon restrictions that really limit what you can do with the extra deck, on top of a monster type that has historically not been treated the best. But I have faith that dedicated pilots have what it takes to get this deck over the top, as well as a few sprinkles of follow-up support to round things out. I mean, I certainly hope so. It would suck to get this invested in the new support for all of it to accomplish basically nothing. That would really sting. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Battlewasps the bee's knees, or is it better if they just buzz off? And which one's your favorite? Real fans know that it's all about pin to win, but let me know what your favorite is down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and get 5% off your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media, and the Wizard Moose, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabits, Ada Basilisk, Adams Ajdel, Oexotoahime, Anansi Dragon, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Leo 458, Mana Charge, Marion James E. Bacata, Megacombi, Millennia Asta, Mern, Muse Clark, Nathan Vig, Natiel Lee Alexander, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pat Poos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Serenity Towns, The Critic of Innocence and Thievery Coast, Cosmic Crusaders Andrew J. Whitaker, Ariel Kersey, Baden von Titty Sprinkles, Beelzephyr, Beluga Masta, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Dr. Reaper R.I.P., Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Ignis Heat the True Draco Slayer, Inblink, Kale the Dragon, Kevon Public, Lobamaru 02, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, McSpoofy, Michael Shimobukuro, Nitromo, Nyx, Obsidian, Shizuka Nijimura, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, Taylor Seymour, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Pokemon 52, Tiger X2476, Weasel King of Weaseltown, and Zaldreka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you want to see me bug out over even more insects, I highly recommend checking out this video where I play a game of domain format with my friends, where I play as the dastardly Weevil Underwood. And if you don't know what domain format is, you're in luck. I've got a nifty video that'll teach you right here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.